Okay, let's unpack this a bit. What if the words you speak, I mean, even the thoughts you just, think, what if they're way more powerful than you ever really imagined?
Mm.
Like, what if they're not just sounds or ideas that kind of fade away, but actual living, vibrating forces? Forces that shape not just, your external world, but the actual universe inside every single person you connect with.
It's a really profound shift in perspective, isn't it, when you
Mm,
start seeing it that way?
it is.
We get so used to thinking of communication as just, well, swapping information,
Yeah.
but it holds this almost alchemical power. It can transform those unseen landscapes within us and between us, too.
Absolutely. Welcome, everyone, to the deep dive.
Glad to be diving in.
Today, we're really plunging into this extraordinary power of words, and more specifically, their underlying
Right,
frequencies.
the energy they carry.
Exactly. We're going to explore how language is truly more than just a tool for, getting things done. It's like an extension of our very essence,
Mm.
carrying these vibrational frequencies that, well, fundamentally impact our connections, our inner worlds, and the whole dynamic of our most important relationships.
Yeah, and our mission today, really, is to try and uncover some of these hidden layers of communication. Delve into what makes a word truly resonate or why sometimes it just falls flat.
Right.
We'll explore how understanding your own self-worth
Yeah.
acts almost like this silent magnet, attracting healthy relationships.
That's a huge one.
It really is. And how cultivating empathy and authenticity can lift your communication onto a whole new level.
Yeah.
And even, how acknowledging your own shadow frequencies, those less helpful parts of ourselves, how that can actually lead to profound personal growth and ultimately more fulfilling interactions.
So get ready for some hopefully deeply resonant aha moments.
Mm,
Things that might fundamentally change how you think about, well, every single conversation you have from now on.
yeah.
This isn't just about grammar or vocabulary, is it? It's about the entire energetic landscape you create with your words and how that landscape affects everything.
Everything.
So let's start maybe with this concept that might sound a bit philosophical at first, but you argue it's deeply rooted in understanding ourselves and even the universe. This idea of the alchemy of words and frequency.
Right.
You've presented this idea that our words aren't just sounds, but living vibrations.
Mhm.
Can you elaborate on what you mean by that? How does that shift how we think about language?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's truly fascinating here is this core idea.
Mm,
Our words, they're not just sounds that, puff out into the air and disappear.
Don.
They are, in a very real and, I think, profound sense, extensions of who we are. They're imbued with a unique vibrational frequency.
Okay.
And to really grasp this, it helps to consider the human body itself. We often just see it as, flesh and bone, solid stuff.
Sure, physical matter.
But if you go a bit deeper,
Mm.
you realize we are fundamentally energetic beings. We're composed of the very elements that structure the universe around us. Think about it. We're earth, our physical matter, bones, organs.
Mhm.
We're fire, that energetic heart, the metabolism, the spark of life within us.
Yeah.
We're wind, that constant rhythm of breath, the inhale and exhale that keeps us going.
Okay.
And maybe most significantly, we are mostly water. Like over 80% of our body is water. So we're
Yeah.
literally made up of these fundamental elements.
That's a beautiful way to put it, actually, seeing ourselves as these elemental expressions. So how does this intricate composition then connect to the power of words and their frequency?
Well, understanding ourselves this way as elemental, as energetic, leads us to a pretty powerful metaphor, actually borrowed loosely from physics.
Mm.
Humans are, in a sense, both particles and waves.
Okay, particles and waves, like light.
Exactly, like light. It can behave as both. So when we interact physically, there's definitely particle aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Two bodies in a room, maybe exchanging information directly.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also this profound wave aspect.
Mm.
Our presence, our intention, our emotional state, all of that is broadcasting a unique frequency.
Right, the vibe we give off.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this is where an analogy from quantum physics, something like quantum entanglement, can be really illustrative. Now, we're not talking about literal subatomic particles here. Let's be clear.
Sure, it's an analogy.
It's an analogy, but the concept is powerful. The idea that two particles can become linked, entangled, and remain connected no matter their distance,
Right.
whatever happens to one, instantly affects the other.
So if I'm following you, you're suggesting that human interactions create a similar kind of deep, lasting, energetic imprint. It's not just a physical meeting, but this more subtle, energetic merging that leaves a mark.
Exactly that. When someone truly enters your solar system, so to speak, when you engage in a deep, meaningful interaction, their wave, their energy, their frequency, it merges with yours.
Wow.
And you are, in a very real sense, forever affected by that interaction, by their presence. It's not like a literal transfer of cells,
Yeah.
obviously. But it's an energetic and emotional resonance that leaves a lasting impression.
Mhm.
It actually shapes your internal landscape. Think about how a really powerful conversation or a moment of deep connection can literally reshape your neural pathways when you interact with that person again.
Yeah, you anticipate them different.
You do. You're more primed for a certain emotional response, a certain way of relating. It's almost like an energetic groove forms between you.
Yeah.
It's not just a memory of what happened, but a deeper patterning in how you relate, which, is a powerful reminder to choose carefully who you allow into your inner circle.
Yeah, because their frequency becomes part of your experience forever.
Forever. That's the idea.
That makes so much sense. It explains why some interactions feel so, I don't know, transformative, while others just seem to wash over you. And when we think of our words, it's almost like we picture them leaving us, becoming separate. Like, you mail a letter, it's gone. You give a gift, it's theirs. But you're saying words are different.
They're fundamentally different in that sense. Our words never truly leave us. They remain an extension of our very essence. They're imbued with our intent, our energy, our frequency.
Okay.
So when we speak, we're not just transmitting data. We are engaging in what I call a soul share.
With soul share, I like that.
Our waves, our frequencies are dynamically affecting each other in real time. We know scientifically, through things like cymatics, how sound waves can literally shape physical materials, right? Creating intricate patterns in sand on a metal plate just through vibration.
Yeah, those videos are amazing.
They are. And we readily study how sounds shape the universe externally, but we rarely stop to consider how our own sounds, our words, are constantly shaping the internal universe of other people,
Huh.
influencing their thoughts, their emotions, even their core beliefs about themselves.
Wow. That makes me think about, ancient creation stories, texts from different traditions that describe creation happening through spoken word. So if we're, in some sense, created in that image, then when we speak, are we literally creating internal universes, shaping the internal landscapes of the people around us?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When a friend looks you in the eye and says, "I love you," those words don't just stop in the air between you.
Right.
They are transferred. They connect you on a level deeper than mere sound waves can explain. It's because we seem to be divinely created with this capacity. If existence itself can be described as being brought forth by a spoken word, and if we are created in that image, then yes, our speech holds a profound creative power,
Mm-hmm.
dynamically shaping the internal landscapes of those around us. Every kind word can plant a seed of hope, and conversely, every harsh word can erode self-worth. It's powerful stuff.
It really is. Truly profound. But okay, this raises a really important question then. Is it the words themselves, the actual language, the vocabulary? Or is it the frequency, the way they're delivered that carries this huge power? Which one is more dominant, do you think?
That's a critical distinction, and it's fascinating. Humans understand frequencies before they ever understand language.
Before language, how so?
Think about an infant,
Mm.
a baby. Yeah, they can't speak English or Spanish or Korean, right? They don't understand syntax or vocabulary at all.
Just gurgles.
Right. But when you lean over that baby and say, "I love you," they don't process the phonetic sounds LOVE. They can't.
Okay.
Instead, they absorb the frequency of your words, the texture, the warmth, the tenderness in your tone. And then they start to attribute meaning to those sounds based on that emotional resonance they felt. Words are really just sounds that we as a society collectively agree have meaning.
Right. Conventions.
Exactly. And that meaning is transmitted not just through the literal sound, but crucially through the underlying waves, the texture, the frequency of our voice.
So in a very real way then, the how we say something matters just as much, maybe even more sometimes, than the what we say. The texture, the tone, the underlying frequency, they're all equally important.
They're completely intertwined, like two sides of the same coin, really.
Ah.
Language is both an art and a science. It's poetry and prose working together.
Yeah.
You absolutely must be careful about what you say, the words you choose. But I would argue you must be even more careful about the texture and the how you say it, the frequency you're broadcasting.
Do you have an example of that? Where the frequency trumped the words?
I do, actually. A really profound experience I had years ago in Germany. I was speaking to about, 5,000 people. Big audience.
Wow.
And I had a translator. naturally. I knew I was about to make a statement that was, well, let's just say, rather controversial for a fairly stoic German audience.
Okay, setting the scene.
So halfway through my talk, I made the statement. My translator translated it, and almost instantly, I stopped him. Mid-sentence.
You stopped him.
I did. I said, "You did not say what I just said." He looked at me, completely baffled, and said, but you don't speak German."
Right, how could you know?
And I replied, "That's not the point. Did you translate my words accurately, or did you change what I said?" And right there, in front of 5,000 people, he admitted it.
Yeah.
He said he changed it because he personally didn't agree with my point.
No way, and you knew, just from the frequency, even without understanding a single word.
Instantly. His entire tone changed.
Yeah.
The frequency just dropped, shifted dramatically. The energy, the intention he put into the words was completely different from mine.
Wow.
He thought it was impossible for me to know. But when you're attuned to frequencies, not just words, it changes everything. It's a testament, I think, to how deeply we're wired to perceive these nonverbal energetic cues.
That's an incredible real-world anecdote. It just brings this whole abstract idea right down to earth. And you can even see this principle with animals too, right? Like with dogs. They don't understand our language at all.
Oh, absolutely. Dogs
Aren't
don't
they?
speak English, do they? They speak frequencies.
Totally. Tail wags and barks.
Exactly. You can look at your dog and say, "You are the ugliest dog. You are horrible. I hate you." But if you say it with a genuinely loving frequency, a soft tone, a gentle cadence, that happy voice, they'll be thrilled, wagging their tail, responding to the affection and the frequency, not the literal meaning of the words.
Right, they hear the good boy tone.
Precisely. And conversely, you could say, "Good dog, good boy," in a really angry, sharp, punishing tone, and they'd likely cower or shy away.
Makes sense.
They respond directly to the frequency of your voice, demonstrating this primal, nonverbal understanding of our emotional state. We recognize this frequency-based connection with animals almost instinctively, don't we?
We do.
But we often forget to apply that same understanding in our human interactions. We mistakenly fall back on believing it's purely about the language, the literal words.
So if our words are carrying these living vibrations, shaping the unseen world inside others, what does this mean for us then in our daily lives? You've said that words are as close to alchemy, to magic as we can get. What kind of magic are we really talking about here?
Well, while a lot of people focus on using words for external manifestation, trying to manifest a new job or success or material things.
Yeah, affirmations and things like that.
Right. And there might be something to that, but I believe the true magic, the real alchemy of words lies in their unparalleled power to transform our inner worlds.
Okay. The inner landscape.
Yes. We don't often stop and think about how our sounds, our utterances, are fundamentally shaping the universe inside of people. When you speak into someone's life, whether you're talking to a child, a partner, a friend, a colleague, you are quite literally transforming the internal landscape, the emotional and mental architecture within them.
That's a really profound thought. Shaping the universe inside someone. Can you give an example of how that plays out?
Sure. Think about the words spoken to a child. If someone, especially someone they trust or look up to, repeatedly tells a child that they are worthless or a burden or not good enough, incredibly heavy, those words, imbued with that specific negative frequency, can profoundly shape their internal universe. They can create this crushing weight of self-doubt, a sort of barren internal landscape where self-worth struggles to grow.
Yeah.
But conversely, if someone looks at that same child and consistently tells them with genuine frequency that they are special, loved, valued, and capable,
Yes.
that positive frequency, it just explodes inside their universe. It creates this vibrant, fertile space for hope, for joy, for meaning, and ultimately for real happiness to take root. So much of what people desperately search for in the external world, validation, joy, peace, it's actually only found and cultivated in our internal world.
Wow.
And that world is profoundly shaped by the words we hear, and maybe even more importantly, the words we speak to ourselves.
So the true purpose of communication then isn't just about swapping information or getting tasks done. It's aiming for something much deeper.
That's deeper.
Like achieving profound human connection, intimacy, a sense of real understanding where people feel truly seen, heard, and valued. Which means going beyond just the literal words and connecting with that underlying frequency.
Exactly. And this dynamic, it becomes particularly challenging in deep, long-term relationships, doesn't it? Where familiarity can sometimes breed a kind of communicative complacency.
Oh, for sure. Taking things for granted.
Right. I've been married for 40 years now, and believe me, if all my wife and I relied on was the literal words we exchanged over the decades, well, our relationship wouldn't have lasted. It couldn't have.
Yeah.
If I just told her, look, I told you I loved you back in 2016, why do I need to keep saying it? That's a purely utilitarian approach. It simply doesn't resonate in a loving, connected relationship.
No, that would not go over well.
Not at all.
Yeah.
The real challenge, and frankly the ongoing work, is continually finding and expressing the frequency that keeps making the other person feel valued, cherished, and truly accepted now. Not just relying on a declaration from the past. It's about making sure the love you express today feels as fresh and authentic as it did on day one.
So if words are this powerful alchemy for the inner world, then the health of our own inner landscape, our own self-worth, must be absolutely foundational. It has to be the starting point for any meaningful external connection. You often emphasize that, don't you? That you can't truly connect with others if you haven't dealt with the health of your own soul.
It's the absolute core principle. It's the bedrock. The way to anchor yourself, to radiate a more positive, more attractive frequency externally,
Yeah.
it has to begin with paying profound attention to what you're saying to yourself.
The inner dialogue.
Yes. If you are not kind or compassionate or empathetic towards your own inner self, it is incredibly difficult, I'd say almost impossible, to authentically extend that kindness and empathy outwards to others. Think about it. When you observe someone who is consistently angry or critical or bitter towards other people, what are you often seeing? You're often seeing a person who is fundamentally angry, critical, or bitter with themselves.
Right. Projecting outwards.
Exactly. They don't truly understand or accept their own inner world, so they project that inner turmoil outward onto others.
So real transformation, whether it's in relationships or just personal growth, it really has to start by addressing what's happening inside.
It does, unequivocally.
Yeah.
It requires courageously facing and transforming the toxic emotions that can build up inside your soul. Bitterness, anger, jealousy, blame, shame, guilt, all of it.
Yeah. The heavy stuff.
The heavy stuff. And whether these destructive emotions come from past actions you can't forgive yourself for, or from past hurts where you wrongly took on blame and internalized it, the path to peace, the path to healthy connection, it invariably involves self-forgiveness. Some individuals burdened by these internal conflicts, they become perpetual victims, right? Always feeling wronged. Others might turn to a form of emotional or verbal violence as a misguided way to avoid being victimized again. This violence can show up in their words, their tone, their emotional outbursts, not always physically. You simply cannot live your life connecting to people at a deeply human, authentic level if you haven't first learned to connect with and begin to heal yourself.
This principle connects so directly to relationships, doesn't it? You've highlighted this idea that we inherently tend to attract relationships that precisely match our current level of self-worth.
This is an absolutely critical insight. It's like a natural, almost magnetic principle of attraction operating under the surface. If you possess low self-worth, maybe a deep-seated, often unconscious belief that you're not truly worthy of love or happiness,
Yeah.
you will repeatedly find yourself drawn into relationships that, despite what you consciously want, end up validating that very belief.
Oof, that's tough.
It is tough. And it invariably leads to toxic dynamics, painful breakups, and this reinforcing cycle where you feel even more unworthy afterwards. These painful relationship patterns, they are rarely just random bad luck. They are often profound symptoms of what's happening internally.
So like self-loathing or just deep-seated beliefs about not being worthy of love.
Exactly. Your relationships become, in many ways, a mirror reflecting your inner landscape back at you.
So it sounds like our internal shadows, those unacknowledged, unhealed parts of ourselves, can act like a powerful magnet, almost unconsciously pulling in partners who resonate with those same vulnerabilities.
That's an excellent way to articulate it, yes.
Yeah.
If you're living in your shadows, so to speak, maybe holding on to unhealed wounds or negative self-perceptions, you will unconsciously seek out partners who are also living in their shadows.
Why? Does that feel safer somehow?
Initially, it often does feel safer, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't immediately expose your own vulnerabilities. It's like a familiar, albeit dysfunctional, comfort zone.
Okay.
But ultimately, it just leads to this painful mirroring of your internal struggles. And often, the most painful realization when one of those relationships ends involves the partner reflecting back the very negative beliefs you secretly held about yourself all along.
Like they say the exact thing you feared was true.
Precisely. They might articulate the exact critiques or judgments you had already been telling yourself internally. validating your deepest fears about your unworthiness.
Yeah.
It becomes this painful, self-fulfilling prophecy driven by your internal narrative.
Wow. Okay, so to truly break that cycle then, to attract a genuinely harmonious, peaceful, healthy relationship,
Yeah.
it's essential to heal and, like you said, upgrade that old identity, that old internal story.
Exactly right. It's about courageously letting go of past pains, consciously forgiving yourself and maybe others, and intentionally stepping into a new, empowered version of yourself. For me, personally, my own journey involved a huge shift here.
How so?
Well, I spent years trying to earn my worth, earn love, mostly through external validation,
Yeah.
particularly through sports. Always striving, always having to prove myself.
Yeah, a lot of people can relate to
I
that.
think so. But then I encountered this profound concept of grace, this radical idea that you are just accepted, inherently worthy,
Mm.
just as you are. It taught me that you don't earn your worth. You just start from a place of inherent worth, and then you live from that foundation. It's a complete paradigm shift for me.
Yeah.
Turned everything upside down in the best way.
So once that inherent worth is truly accepted deep down, once you start from that place of value, life transforms from this constant struggle to prove yourself into what you call a beautiful adventure, almost like a bonus game.
It really does. Profoundly. I no longer have to live my life trying to prove my worth or earn being loved or justify my right to exist on this planet.
Yeah.
I simply accept that I am here, I am worthy, and I am loved. And from that place, life genuinely becomes this beautiful adventure. Sometimes I actually find myself feeling a little guilty for being so genuinely excited about being alive, even with all the daily challenges.
Guilty. Why?
I don't know.
Mhm.
Maybe it feels too good. But I refuse to apologize for that profound gratitude. Gratitude for the gift of being alive, for simply getting to participate in this extraordinary journey. It's a bonus round.
That's a powerful shift, moving
Yeah.
from scarcity to abundance and grace. But this acceptance, this joy, this positive internal landscape, it doesn't just happen effortlessly, does it? You've said that while misery and negative emotions can seem to come easily, positive emotions like joy, peace, hope, they require deliberate work, intention.
That is absolutely true, and it's a crucial point. Nothing truly valuable in life comes easy. Think about it. Every negative emotion, anger, resentment, bitterness, envy, can feel like it just arises effortlessly sometimes.
Yeah, it can sneak up on you.
It really can.
Yeah.
But every positive emotion, true joy, lasting peace, resilient hope, unconditional love that takes intentional, consistent work every single day. If you look at any form of greatness, whether it's in a career or a relationship or personal development, there's no aspect of it that comes without effort. You have to be willing to constantly overcome your lesser self, right? To make better decisions every day against the pull of complacency or negativity.
It's a constant choice.
It's a constant choice. Building a truly great, enduring relationship isn't easy. It takes daily intention, sustained effort, and focused attention on the other person, on their needs, on their frequency. You have to actively fight for peace in your own soul. You have to choose to cultivate love. And you have to constantly strive for the best version of yourself. It's a continuous, intentional struggle, but it's the struggle that yields the most profound rewards in life.
Okay, so if we're doing that inner work, fighting for the best version of ourselves, building that inner strength, how do we then take that and elevate our communication frequency? How do we make it resonate at its highest level in our relationships? What's the core strategy for making our words, sing and connect more deeply?
To really elevate your communication frequency to its highest potential, its most resonant state, you need to focus on intentionally increasing two vital qualities within yourself. Two pillars, really.
Okay, what are they?
Empathy and authenticity.
Empathy and authenticity. Okay, empathy is often described as just, walking in someone else's shoes. But you suggest it's much more profound than that simple phrase.
It is much more than just a cognitive exercise of imagining someone's situation. True empathy means stepping into another person's soul, not just their circumstances.
Into their soul. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, it means really trying to experience the world from their perspective, understanding their unique emotional landscape, seeing life through their specific lens, their history, their hopes, their fears, everything that makes them who they are. It's about truly seeing the other person with such clarity that their internal world becomes, even just for a moment, intimately known to you. It's a selfless act, really, bearing witness to their inner experience.
Okay. That's a much deeper definition of empathy. And authenticity, then, is the other side of that coin, the complementary process.
Yes, exactly. Authenticity is about allowing others to see you for who you truly are, with all your beautiful complexities, your vulnerabilities, your imperfections.
Being willing to be seen.
Precisely. It involves courageously revealing your deep emotional texture, your true motivations, the genuine context for your life. It's about taking off the masks we all wear sometimes and allowing your true self to be seen and known.
Okay.
And when you grow simultaneously in both empathy and truly seeing and understanding others and authenticity, courageously allowing yourself to be seen, your communication frequency just naturally rises. It becomes richer, more vibrant, more resonant, and that leads to exponentially deeper, more fulfilling connections.
So, if you're trying to communicate better in, say, a long-term marriage like your own, or even a close friendship, how do you apply this empathy and authenticity practically, day after day, year after year? How do you keep tuning in to the right frequency?
I think it's absolutely vital to constantly listen to the room. And I don't just mean the physical room.
Right, the emotional atmosphere.
Exactly. The emotional and contextual nuances of the specific moment. You need to try and understand what frequency is needed right now in this interaction, rather than just defaulting to a single dominant communication style that might work great elsewhere, but is totally inappropriate for intimacy.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Like I mentioned, my wife's primary communication frequency, especially in her professional life, is what I call commander.
Okay. Decisive, direct.
Very effective in a business setting. Direct, decisive, utilitarian, gets things done, leads to success. But if she used that same utilitarian commander approach at home, maybe saying something like, I told you I loved you years ago, why do I need to repeat it every day?
Yeah, we talked about that.
Right. It would leave me feeling unappreciated, unseen, disconnected. The challenge in a relationship, the ongoing work, is to constantly find and express the frequency that truly resonates with your partner, that makes them feel valued, loved, and accepted in that specific evolving moment.
Not just falling back on the default setting.
Exactly. Love isn't a one-time declaration you make and then check off a list. It's a continuous, intentional act of expression, tuned to the present moment.
So it's about getting beyond that sort of utilitarian, facts-only kind of love expression and finding the expressive element that truly connects, that consistently refreshes the feeling of being cherished.
Perfectly put,
Yeah.
yes. And here's another angle. Expressing unconditional love, speaking words of appreciation, it should be viewed as a profound gift to you, just as much as it is to the other person.
A gift to the giver. How so?
Because it enriches your own soul as you give it. It reinforces your own capacity for love and connection. Let me give you a small, almost humorous, but really powerful example from my own life.
Okay.
My wife, as I might have mentioned, is a farm girl from North Carolina. And food, especially her cooking, is absolutely central to her expression of love and care. It's her love language, you could say. So when she cooks, she literally waits for me to comment on everything she's prepared. Even if she just buys a store-bought pie for dessert, she wants to know if it was a good choice, if I liked it.
Huh. Okay. The feedback is crucial.
Absolutely crucial. After 40 years of marriage, countless meals, I've learned this deeply. It gives her indescribable joy and validation to hear me genuinely appreciate her effort, her choices. And honestly, it costs me absolute nothing to say, wow, honey, this is incredible, or I love what you did with this dish. It takes zero effort, but the returning connection and her feeling seen is immense.
Yeah.
That's an act of intentional appreciation. It's consciously tuning in to her specific frequency of receiving love. It's about making someone feel seen, loved, and accepted right now in that very moment. Not just assuming they know because you said something nice last week. It's those subtle, consistent acts of valuing that build enduring connection.
That's such a relatable and powerful example. It really highlights how those small, consistent acts of appreciation can be so vital. I think many of us, especially in long-term relationships, definitely fall into that trap of assuming, oh, they know I love them, or they know I appreciate them.
We do. It's easy to do.
But what you're saying is, even if they know it intellectually, the frequency of consistent, intentional validation is like a fresh dose of oxygen for the relationship every single day.
Beautifully said, yes. Oxygen for the relationship.
Okay, this brings us to a really crucial aspect of self-awareness, especially when things get tough, when we're feeling pain or stress. You talk about understanding our shadow frequencies. What exactly are these, and why is it so critical to be aware of them?
You've hit on a core truth of, well, human psychology and how we communicate. Every single one of us exists on a spectrum, right? From our highest, most authentic, best self, down to our lesser, sometimes unhealed or reactive self.
Yeah, we all have good days and bad days.
Yeah, exactly. And similarly, every core communication frequency that we naturally embody, like motivator or challenger or healer, has a corresponding shadow frequency.
A shadow version. Okay.
Yes, and this isn't some kind of external malevolent force we need to fight off. It's a natural human dynamic. It's often an unintegrated or unhealed aspect of our own personality.
So it's part of us.
It's part of us. And the crucial insight here is that when you're experiencing pain, maybe struggling with intense negative emotions like bitterness or anger, fear, despair, there's a natural and frankly dangerous tendency to unconsciously slip into your shadow frequency.
As a reaction.
As a reaction, it's often a defense mechanism, a coping strategy learned long ago, perhaps.
Sure.
But ultimately, operating from that shadow frequency is destructive, both to ourselves and to our relationships.
So it's not like an external demon we need to cast out, but something that actually resides within us, something we need to acknowledge and maybe integrate somehow.
Precisely. Your shadow isn't some external entity you can just get rid of or push away. It resides within you. It's an unaddressed part of your psychological and emotional makeup.
Okay.
And the only genuine way you can move from operating in your shadow frequency back into the light of your highest, most authentic self is through conscious, intentional choice.
Choice. Okay.
It requires a fundamental shift in what I sometimes call the material of your soul, if you will.
The material of your soul. What do you mean by that?
It means actively choosing forgiveness instead of clinging tightly to bitterness. Choosing love, even when it feels hard, instead of nurturing hate or resentment. Choosing hope deliberately instead of succumbing to despair.
Hard choices sometimes.
Very hard choices. It's an internal transformation, often arduous, that then powerfully reflects outward in your communication, in your energy, and in the quality of your relationships.
Can you give us some specific examples of these core frequencies and their corresponding shadow aspects? I think that would really help us recognize them, maybe in ourselves or even in others.
Certainly. Naming them can be really clarifying. Let's look at a few common ones. For instance, if your core communication frequency is that of a motivator, you naturally inspire, uplift, encourage others.
Yeah, the cheerleader type.
Right. But the motivator's shadow is the performer. When operating in shadow, a motivator might become inauthentic, driven more by needing external validation and applause rather than genuinely wanting to inspire. They need the spotlight.
Ah, okay. Performance over substance.
Exactly. Then there's the challenger. This frequency is typically direct, unafraid to confront difficult issues, drives progress through honest, sometimes tough, feedback.
Gets things moving.
Yes, but the challenger's shadow is the manipulator. When a challenger operates from their shadow, they might use their directness not for growth or truth, but to control, coerce, or undermine others, often using guilt or fear tactics.
Ooh, that's a tricky one.
Yes. How about the commander frequency we touched on? Decisive, action-oriented, leads with clear direction. Highly effective in organizational settings.
Right, the leader.
But the commander's shadow is the dictator. This is when that decisive leadership devolves into rigid inflexibility, an inability to listen to other perspectives, and a demand for unquestioning obedience. It stifles creativity and genuine collaboration.
Yeah, my way or the highway.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Next, consider the professor. This frequency communicates with deep knowledge, a genuine desire to inform, educate, and bring clarity through intellect.
The expert, the teacher.
Right. But the professor's shadow is the diminisher. When operating in shadow, a professor might unconsciously or consciously use their intellect to subtly or overtly make others feel less intelligent, less capable. Instead of elevating understanding, they diminish the listener through condescension or an insistence on being the sole authority.
Makes others feel small. Okay.
Then, the healer. This frequency naturally embodies compassion, empathy, and nurturing presence, seeks to mend brokenness and bring comfort.
The caregiver.
Yes. But the healer's shadow is the cipher. In this shadow state, the healer becomes so focused on everyone else's pain and needs that they lose their own identity. They become a cipher unseen, unheard, unable to set healthy boundaries. This often leads to burnout, resentment, or becoming a doormat.
Losing themselves in others. Got it.
And the seer frequency. This is someone who communicates with vision, intuition, a profound ability to perceive future possibilities or deeper unseen truths.
The visionary.
Exactly. But the seer's shadow is the perfectionist. When in shadow, the seer's beautiful vision becomes a rigid, unattainable ideal. They can paralyze themselves and others with impossible standards, never accepting what is, only focusing on what should be, according to their perfect vision.
Crippling perfectionism. Okay.
And one more, the maven. This frequency is about expertise, wisdom, a desire to provide sound, well-researched advice and guidance.
The trusted advisor.
Right. But the maven's shadow is the negativist. When operating in shadow, the maven becomes cynical. They highlight only the problems, tear down ideas, focus incessantly on what's wrong or what could go wrong, rather than offering constructive solutions or fostering hope.
The constant critic, wow.
Yeah, those are just a few examples, but they illustrate the dynamic.
That's incredibly insightful. Just hearing those descriptions brings them to life, makes them so much more tangible. So recognizing when you're slipping into these shadow aspects, it isn't just about self-improvement for its own sake, is it? It's fundamentally about fostering healthier, more authentic interactions in every part of life.
Absolutely, 100%. Understanding your own core frequencies and critically recognizing the triggers and signs when you're slipping into their shadow aspects.
Yeah.
That is one of the most powerful tools available for genuine personal growth and relational maturity. It allows you to consciously choose to operate from your higher, more authentic frequency, even when you're triggered by pain or stress or difficult external circumstances. And that conscious choice leads to exponentially more fulfilling, more authentic, and more constructive interactions in all areas of your life. Especially when you're navigating challenges or past hurts or just difficult conversations. It's really about taking responsibility for the energetic signature you bring into every interaction.
Taking responsibility for your frequency, I like that. Okay, this brings us to a broader perspective now, something that seems to connect all these threads we've been discussing, the idea of living with intention and actively creating your future. You've spoken before about a significant challenge many people face, living a life based on obligation rather than their own clear intention.
It is a colossal hurdle. It really is. A staggering number of people, I think, live their lives primarily according to what they perceive others think they should do. Their parents, their spouse, their community, society.
It should.
The shoulds.
Yeah.
Exactly. Rather than truly aligning with their own clear purpose and their deepest authentic intentions. And frankly, it's an impossible task, isn't it? Trying to please everyone,
Totally impossible.
especially those closest to you. Surprisingly, they might be the ones most unhappy with your authentic life choices, if those choices challenge their own comfort zones or expectations for you.
Hmm.
True freedom and a capacity to really create your most extraordinary future. It comes from precisely that, letting go of the need for external approval, deeply knowing your own purpose and then courageously living by it, regardless of the applause or the criticism.
Have you struggled with that personally?
Oh, for a very long time.
Yes.
Particularly in trying to balance my spiritual path, my ministry work with my entrepreneurial success. For years, I almost held myself back, conducting a lot of my business work somewhat secretly,
Really? Why?
because I feared people would think my faith wasn't sincere if I also pursued financial success or built large companies. I felt this immense pressure, this constraint of obligation, to fit into a certain box. But now, at 66, I've realized I lived within that constraint for far too long. I simply want to live the rest of my life with maximum joy and maximum positive impact, writing books, starting companies, doing whatever feels aligned, and just let people think whatever they want to think. I can honestly say I am more excited about my future now than I have ever been before. It's about finally giving myself permission to be fully myself.
That sounds incredibly freeing, a true liberation of spirit. And this idea of living with intention, it connects beautifully to how we approach relationships too, doesn't it? You suggest it's not just about finding someone who loves who you are right now, but finding someone who loves who you're becoming. That's a really powerful distinction.
It is. I think it's a deeper, more profound, and ultimately more enduring form of love. Because this kind of love, it acknowledges your ongoing growth, your continuous evolution. It sees your deepest motives, your intentions, your desires for the future, not just your current snapshot.
So they see the journey, not just the destination.
Exactly. So when you inevitably fall short,
Yeah.
because we all do, right? We all stumble. Such a partner isn't immediately disillusioned or disappointed because they never saw you as some static, perfect ideal in the first place. They saw you as a dynamic human being on a journey.
Okay.
They are the ones who consistently pull you up, who see your missteps or hiccups as temporary deviations, not as fundamental flaws in who you fundamentally are. They refuse to give up on your becoming. They support the person you are striving to evolve into.
That's beautiful.
And this is precisely why relationships that are forged during shared struggles, shared challenges, often have a profound advantage. Because the partners witness and support each other's becoming together through the thick of it. It builds this incredible foundation of mutual understanding, resilience, and shared history.
Yeah, like you mentioned with your wife starting out with very little.
Exactly. We married when I was 25, making maybe $8,000 a year.
Yeah.
We were literally sleeping on the floor, eating ramen noodles most nights. But we were profoundly happy because we were becoming together, supporting each other's dreams, navigating the challenges side by side. That shared journey creates an almost unbreakable bond.
That paints such a vivid picture of a truly supportive partnership. So, thinking about this kind of abundance, this intentional living, this supportive love,
Mm.
what's one of the main blocks that stops people from achieving that?
I think one of the primary, most pervasive blocks to abundance, to living with full intention and finding that kind of relationship, is fear.
Fear.
Humans
Fear?
are unique.
Yeah.
We are, in a sense, faith creatures because we are the singular species on this planet, as far as we know, that possesses the remarkable capacity to perceive the future, to imagine what might be.
Right. Animals live in the present.
Mostly, yes. But this perception, unique to us, it creates this constant dynamic tension inside us. We can imagine the future negatively, which is the very essence of fear, or we can imagine it positively, which is the essence of faith.
Fear or faith.
And the moment you perceive the future primarily through the lens of fear, you tend to become paralyzed. You get stuck, unable to move forward, effectively trapping yourself in your current circumstances or even in the past.
So instead of letting fear paralyze us, you're suggesting we can actually transform it, use it as positive fuel, almost like a guide.
Exactly. Fear, counterintuitively perhaps, can actually inform you of the direction you should go.
How does that work?
Well, when a future possibility feels overwhelmingly too big for your current self, when it triggers that sensation of fear or inadequacy, that feeling is often a signal that you are on the right track. It indicates a significant growth opportunity lies just beyond your comfort zone.
So the fear means you're aiming high enough.
In a way, yes. It means the future you're contemplating requires you to stretch, to grow. And when you courageously step into that bigger future, even while feeling the fear, you inevitably grow to size. You rise to meet the challenge. Your future isn't designed to be as small or as comfortable as you are right now. It's meant to stretch you.
Okay, grow to size. I like that. But how do you cultivate faith in a future you can't actually see yet, especially when it feels daunting or scary?
Well, think about it. If you could clearly see it, if it was guaranteed and laid out perfectly, you wouldn't need faith for it, would you?
No, I guess not. It would just be planning.
Exactly. Faith is precisely needed for a future you cannot yet see, for stepping into the unknown with trust and confidence. But here's the crucial difference and the profound power you possess. The future isn't some static destination you just walk into, like following a predetermined map on GPS.
Right.
It's dynamic, it's alive, and it is fundamentally created from within you.
Yeah.
Humans have this incredible, unique capacity. Silkworms create silk, bees create honey, beavers create dams, but only humans consciously create futures.
Create futures.
Every single moment of our lives, every choice we make, every word we speak with intention, every action we take, it is actively shaping a future. The real question isn't can you create the future you already are. The question is, what kind of future will you intentionally choose to create?
And when we're trapped by fear, that creative capacity shrinks. It creates a very different kind of future.
Absolutely. When you are primarily informed by fear, you tend to create this psychological and emotional cocoon around yourself. It feels like protection, trying to shield you from the perceived dangers of the future.
Yeah, safety first.
But in reality, that cocoon traps you firmly in the past. It makes life feel repetitive, stagnant, like that phrase, nothing new under the sun. You just keep reliving old patterns, old limitations, old experiences.
Okay.
But when you are truly free, when you consciously shed that fear-based cocoon, you unlock your innate, God-given capacity to create the new, to co-create with life itself. There's this interesting tension, even in ancient wisdom texts, right?
Yeah.
Between the idea that there's nothing new under the sun and these profound statements like, behold, I am doing a new thing. Do you not perceive it?
Right. Both seem true somehow.
And maybe they are, depending on our state of being. We have a profound choice. Live as if nothing is new, trapped in the cocoon of the past, or live in a dynamic relationship with life where all things are continuously becoming new through your intentional action and faith.
And embracing this means embracing the unexpected, maybe, even later in life, continuing to push boundaries.
It does, absolutely. For me, personally, it's been this profound realization lately that I just need to buckle up, seriously. I'm 66 years old. By conventional wisdom, I should probably be, landing the plane, thinking about retirement, slowing down.
Right, taking it easy.
Instead, I genuinely feel like I'm just taking off for the first time in some ways. I am more excited about my future, about the unexpected opportunities that seem to be unfolding than I have ever been before.
That's amazing.
And this fearless embracing of new endeavors, whether it's suddenly deciding to become a fashion designer or an artist or delving into entirely new industries I know nothing about it, isn't just for my own personal gain or excitement. No. I've come to believe that every time I take on some seemingly ridiculous, unexpected endeavor and actually do something new, I know I'm implicitly breaking down invisible barriers for other people too,
Mm.
not just for myself.
How so?
It kind of subconsciously sets others free. It gives them permission to pursue their own unexpected paths, to shed their own cocoons of obligation and fear. It shows it's possible.
That's a really powerful way to think about impact. And that piece of advice you learned, that phrase, you belong in the room, that must resonate deeply when you're embarking on these new, maybe intimidating ventures.
Oh, it's become one of the most powerful and necessary reminders for me.
Mm.
Absolutely. As you grow, as you step into bigger opportunities, new rooms, new levels of influence or impact, that insidious inner voice of imposter syndrome often tries to whisper or shout otherwise.
Yeah. Who do you think you are?
Exactly. You don't belong in this room. You're not qualified enough. You're not smart enough. You're not ready. That simple, direct reminder, you belong in the room,
Mm-hmm.
it serves as this beacon of courage. It's a recognition that your unique path, your unique contribution, your unique frequency, it's valid and it's necessary. You are there for a reason. Trust it.
You belong in the room. That's something everyone can probably use. So what does this all mean for us then, for the listener who's gone on this pretty deep dive with us today? You said the world needs the best version of everyone.
It means precisely that. The world doesn't need another copy of someone else. It doesn't need you to be like anyone else. It desperately needs you to embrace your unique, extraordinary self, to walk a path perhaps never walked before, and to trust that your individuality, your specific frequency, is your greatest strength and your most valuable contribution. This fearless, maybe even insanely committed approach to creating something beautiful and extraordinary from within you. That's not just about personal liberation or success.
Mhm.
It is fundamentally how we collectively make the world better. One intentional, high-frequency word, one courageous choice, one authentic expression at a time.
Wow. Well, we have certainly unpacked the incredible power of words today. We've gone beyond just sounds to really understand them as these living vibrational frequencies that profoundly shape not only our inner worlds, but every single relationship we encounter.
Mhm.
We've explored how self-worth acts as that silent magnet, drawing healthy connections to us, how cultivating empathy and authenticity are really the indispensable keys to elevating our communication frequency,
Yeah, those twin pillars.
and how even understanding and acknowledging our shadows, those shadow frequencies, holds such valuable lessons for our personal growth and for creating deeper intimacy. We've really journeyed from the micro level of energetic imprints between people to the macro level of consciously creating our own future.
And it all comes back to recognizing that every interaction is truly a kind of soul share, isn't it?
Right.
And every word we utter carries an energetic signature that profoundly impacts both ourselves and the listener. The transformation of your own inner world through self-awareness, through intentional choice. That's the true alchemy we've been discussing today. That's where the real magic happens.
Indeed, it truly is. So as you, the listener, reflect on this deep dive we've taken together today, maybe consider this final provocative thought. If every choice you make is actively creating your future, bit by bit, and if fear is often simply your brilliant brain's way of telling you that the future holds a possibility that feels, right now, too big for your present self, what specific fear are you currently allowing to paralyze you, to keep you in that cocoon?
Good question.
And maybe more importantly, what courageous, intentional choice could you make today, maybe even right now, to begin stepping into that bigger future, knowing that as you take that step, as you embrace that challenge, you will undeniably grow to size?